The lecture hall buzzed with the usual sounds of students settling into their seats. Taeyong slouched in his chair near the back, his blue-scaled fingers drumming against the desk surface. Beside him, Giwoo arranged her datapad with careful precision. Already prepared to take notes before Professor Krelm had even arrived. "I heard we're covering the Forbidden Species Index today," Taeyang whispered, barely containing his amusement. "You know that ancient list of scary monsters our ancestors were afraid of?" Jiwoo shot him a warning glance. "Those prohibitions exist for reasons. Our ancestors weren't fools. Maybe not fools, just paranoid," Taeyong replied with a grin. "We've explored half the galaxy since then. Most of those forbidden species either went extinct or turned out to be perfectly harmless." Before Giwoo could respond, the door slid open and Professor Krelm entered. The elderly Velrosian moved slowly, his scales faded to a pale gray with age. He had taught galactic law and ancient prohibitions for over 60 cycles, and his reputation for strictness was legendary. "Today we discuss laws that have shaped our civilization for 800 cycles," Krelm began, his voice still strong despite his age. "The Forbidden Species Index contains 17 entries, 17 civilizations that the Galactic Council has deemed too dangerous for contact." He paused, letting his gaze sweep across the classroom. "How many of you believe these prohibitions are still necessary?" Only 3 hands rose, Gu's among them. Taeyong didn't bother hiding his smirk. Krelm nodded slowly, as if he'd expected this response. "And how many believe these laws are outdated relics of a more fearful time?" Nearly every other hand shot up. Taeyong's rose highest. "Predictable," Krelm said quietly. He activated the wall display, and a list appeared in glowing script. At the very top, in letters that seemed almost to pulse with warning, was a single entry: humanity. Status: absolute prohibition. Penalty for contact: immediate exile and memory wipe. Laughter rippled through the classroom. Someone in the front row muttered something about ancient superstitions. Taeyong leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. "With respect, Professor, this is exactly what I mean," Taeyong said, not bothering to wait for permission to speak. "Humanity. They're not even a real threat, if they even exist anymore. The entry is 800 cycles old. They were probably some minor aggressive species that burned themselves out in a civil war or something." More murmurs of agreement spread through the room. Giwoo remained silent, but her expression was troubled. "You believe the prohibition is unnecessary?" Krelm asked, his tone neutral. "I believe any intelligent species can be reasoned with," Taeyong said confidently. "These absolute prohibitions, they're just institutionalized xenophobia. We're better than our ancestors. More enlightened. We should be reaching out, not hiding behind outdated fears." "Interesting perspective," Krelm said. He moved to his desk and picked up a small crystalline object that caught the light. "This is a data crystal. Inside it is a recording, sealed by the High Council 800 cycles ago. It explains in explicit detail why the prohibition on humanity was enacted. It has been viewed by only 17 individuals in all that time. Each was a council member. Each watched it only once. The classroom had gone quiet. Even Taeyang sat up straighter, his curiosity piqued. "Why so secret?" someone asked. "Because knowledge carries responsibility," Krelm replied. "The council decided that knowing the truth about humanity was itself a burden. Better to simply enforce the prohibition without explanation than to spread the fear that justified it." "That's ridiculous," Taeyong scoffed. "How can we follow laws we don't understand? That's not enlightenment. That's blind obedience." Perhaps Krelm said, "But consider this. The recording has remained sealed not because the council feared you would ignore the prohibition if you knew the truth. They feared you would never sleep soundly again." He placed the crystal back in its case. "The recording remains in the restricted archives, Vault 7. It will likely remain there long after we're all dust." The lecture continued, but Taeyong barely heard another word. His mind was already working, already planning. Beside him, Jiwoo took notes diligently, but he noticed her hand trembled slightly whenever she wrote the word humanity. After class, Taeyong caught up with Jiwoo in the corridor. "We need to see that recording." "Absolutely not," she said immediately. Come on, don't you want to know? Real knowledge, not just blind rules. The vault is sealed for a reason, Taeyong. A reason we deserve to understand, he pressed. You heard, Krelm. They're keeping us ignorant on purpose. That's not how law should work. That's not how knowledge should work. Jiwoo stopped walking and turned to face him. And if there's a good reason for that ignorance, if they're protecting us, from what? Information. Taeyang laughed. I don't need protection from the truth, do you? She was quiet for a long moment, and he could see the conflict in her eyes. Finally, she sighed. One viewing. We watch it once, and then we never speak of this again. DL, Taeyong agreed quickly. Before she could change her mind, that night, they made their way through the empty corridors of the Archival Institute. Giwoo had obtained access codes through her work-study position in the administrative office. Technically, she had clearance for the archives. Technically, that clearance didn't extend to Vault 7. The restricted section was deep underground, far from the usual student areas. Their footsteps echoed off stone walls that seemed to absorb sound and light equally. When they finally reached Vault 7, a massive door stood before them. Covered in warning symbols in 17 different languages. Last chance to turn back, Jiwoo whispered. Taeyong entered the access code she'd given him. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a hiss of released pressure, the door began to open. Inside, the vault was smaller than expected. A single pedestal stood in the center, and upon it rested a data crystal identical to the one Professor Krelm had shown them. Beside the pedestal was a viewing terminal, screen dark and waiting. They approached slowly, reverently, as if entering a tomb, which Taeyang thought perhaps they were. A tomb for truth that someone had tried to bury. Jiwoo picked up the crystal with shaking hands. Are you sure about this? Taeyong nodded. We deserve to know. She inserted the crystal into the terminal. The screen flickered to life, and a voice spoke. It was old, tired, carrying the weight of terrible experience. This recording contains the complete documentation of first contact with humanity, the subsequent conflict, and the reasons for absolute prohibition. Viewer discretion is advised. Some content may cause psychological distress. Just history, Taeyong said, trying to sound confident. Nothing we can't handle. The screen brightened, and the recording began. Neither of them noticed the small text at the bottom that read, Runtime. For hours, 17 minutes. They would watch every second. The recording flickered, showing the bridge of a massive starship. The date stamp in the corner read 804 cycles ago. A Velrosian in elegant diplomatic robes stood at the center of the bridge, his scales bright with youth and excitement. Captain's log, supplemental, the Velrosian spoke to the recording device. I am Ambassador Dalsu of the Velrosian First Contact Fleet. Today marks a historic moment. We have discovered a new intelligent species in Sector 447 of the Outer Spiral Arm. The view shifted to show a planet hanging in space. It was beautiful, covered in swirling white clouds, vast blue oceans, and continents of green and brown. Taeyong leaned closer to the screen, fascinated despite himself. The species calls themselves humans, Dalsu continued. They call their world Earth. Initial scans show they are carbon-based, oxygen-breathing, and remarkably similar to us in basic biology. However, they have not yet achieved faster-than-light travel. They are confined to their single planet and a few primitive stations in their local space. Another Velrosian appeared on screen, this one wearing military uniform. Her scales bore the deep blue pattern of a warrior caste. Ambassador, I must again register my concerns. Our surveys show this planet has extreme environmental variations. The temperature ranges from freezing to boiling across different regions. There are vast deserts where water is almost non-existent. There are areas where the cold would kill most species in minutes. Your point, Captain Haijin? Dalsu asked. My point is that any species that evolved in such conditions would need to be extraordinarily resilient, possibly aggressive. I recommend extended observation before making contact. Dalsu waved a hand dismissively. They're primitive, Captain. They've had over 10,000 wars in their recorded history, yes. but that's normal for a developing species. We went through similar phases. They'll grow past it just as we did. Besides, look at them. The view changed to show surveillance footage of humans going about their daily lives. They walked through cities, tended farms, played with their young. They looked harmless, peaceful. Some even looked soft and weak compared to the scaled Valrosians. They're children, Dulce said warmly. Children who need guidance. That's our purpose, isn't it? To bring new species into the light of civilization. Haijin didn't look convinced, but she nodded. As you command, Ambassador, the recording jumped forward. Now, it showed Dulce's ship descending toward Earth, toward a location the humans had designated. For first contact, thousands of humans gathered to watch, their faces filled with wonder and excitement. The actual meeting was peaceful. The humans were curious, friendly, eager to learn. Their leaders spoke through translation devices about their dreams of exploring the stars. They asked questions about Valrosian technology, culture, and the wider galaxy. They seemed hungry for knowledge but not threatening. Taeyong relaxed slightly. See, they look perfectly reasonable. Keep watching, Jiwoo said quietly. Her eyes hadn't left the screen. Days in the recording passed in minutes. Lulsu established a diplomatic station on Earth. He met with human leaders from different nations. The humans were divided into separate governments, often competing with each other. But they came together for the contact with alien life. Then, Dulce began sharing technology. Simple things at first. Better solar panels, water purification systems, medical knowledge that could save millions of human lives. The humans received each gift with gratitude and wonder. This is beautiful, Dulce said in one recorded conversation with a human leader. Your species has such potential. With our help, you could join the galactic community within a few generations. The human leader, an elderly woman with gray hair, smiled. We're grateful, Ambassador. Though I wonder if you understand what you're giving us. Humans are very good at taking something simple and finding new uses for it. Sometimes uses the Creator never intended. That's the sign of an intelligent, creative species, Dulce replied cheerfully. We encourage such innovation. The woman's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. I hope you mean that. The recording jumped forward again. 6 months had passed since first contact. Dulce stood in his ready room, looking troubled. Captain Haijin stood across from him, her expression grim. 17 ships, Ambassador, she said. 17 Valrosian vessels have disappeared in the space near human territory in the last month. No distress signals. No debris. Just gone. Pirates, Dulce suggested. The Krell raiders have been active in this sector. Krell don't operate this far out. And there's more. Haijin activated a holographic display. Mining equipment has been stolen from 3 of our nearby colonies. Advanced sensors, shield generators, even weapons, Ambassador. Someone is taking our technology. You think it's the humans? I think we should investigate before making accusations. Yes. The pattern is suspicious. Dulce shook his head. Even if some humans are involved, it would be a small criminal element. Every species has those. Can't judge an entire civilization by the actions of a few. I'm not judging, Ambassador. I'm advising caution. Dulce had already made up his mind to continue monitoring but take no aggressive action. I won't risk our relationship with humanity over unproven suspicions. The recording shifted to show a small Valrosian colony on the edge of human space. It was called Colony Praxis, a mining settlement with perhaps 5,000 inhabitants. They extracted rare minerals from an asteroid belt and lived quiet, peaceful lives. A human ship approached the colony. It was small, clearly civilian, broadcasting friendly intentions. The colony governor, a Valrosian named Insu, welcomed them. The humans who disembarked were led by a man who introduced himself as Donghayan. He was young, energetic, full of smiles and stories. He brought gifts from Earth, art, music, food that the Valrosians found strange but interesting. He talked about trade opportunities, cultural exchange, friendship between their peoples. Governor Insu was charmed. Over the following weeks, Dong Haiyan and his small crew became regular visitors to the colony. They were welcomed in homes, invited to celebrations. The colonists loved hearing stories about Earth, about human culture and history. Then Captain Haijin arrived at Colony Praxis unannounced. She brought security teams and scanning equipment. Governor Insu met her at the landing bay, clearly annoyed. "Captain, this is highly irregular. You can't just arrive at a civilian colony with a military presence without clearance." "I have clearance from the High Council," Haijin said coldly. She handed him a datapad. "Governor, where are your human guests right now? Dong Haiyan and his crew are in the recreation district, I believe." "Why?" "Because Dong Haiyan isn't a traitor. He's a military intelligence officer in the human naval forces. His crew are all special operations soldiers, and they've been scanning every centimeter of your colony for the past month." Scals paled. "That's impossible. They've been nothing but friendly." "Reconnaissance often is," Haijin replied. "Governor, I need you to quietly evacuate all non-essential personnel. Now." But it was already too late. Alarms began screaming across the colony. The view from the recording showed the sky above the asteroid base suddenly filled with ships. But these weren't the primitive human vessels that Dalsu had first observed. These were warships, heavily armed, incorporating Valrosian shield technology and weapons. The attack was precise and brutal. Human forces disabled the colony's defenses in the first minute. Valrosian security teams tried to respond, but the humans fought with a viciousness that shocked everyone watching. They used tactics that seemed barbaric. They sacrificed their own soldiers to achieve objectives. They showed no hesitation, no mercy. Within an hour, Colony Praxis had fallen. Not destroyed, but captured intact. The humans wanted the technology, the resources. Everything Governor Insu was brought before a human commander. "Why?" he asked, his voice breaking. "We welcomed you, gave you friendship, and we're grateful," the human commander said. His tone was polite, almost kind. "You taught us so much. But you also showed us what we need to survive in this galaxy. Power, technology, resources. You gave us a taste of what's possible out here. Now we're taking the rest." Shin's forces arrived within hours, but the humans had already stripped the colony of everything valuable and retreated. They left the colonists alive, but traumatized, and they left samples behind. Biological samples, blood, tissue. They'd been studying Valrosian physiology. The recording showed Delsu's face. He looked years older, his scales dull with shock. "What have I done?" he whispered. In the vault, Taeyong and Ji-woo stared at the screen in silence. The recording showed a time stamp at the bottom. They were only 40 minutes into a 4-hour recording. "Do we keep watching?" Ji-woo asked. Taeyong couldn't look away from the screen. "We have to." The recording jumped forward 3 months. The Galactic Council chambers filled the screen, vast and ornate, with representatives from 40 different species gathered in an emergency session. Ambassador Dolsu stood at the center, looking small and defeated under the weight of thousands of eyes. "The human problem must be addressed," declared a council elder from the Threxian delegation. "They have proven themselves aggressive, deceptive, and dangerous. We propose immediate military intervention." "We're talking about a species that hasn't even left their home system yet?" Dalsu protested weakly. "Surely we can contain this through diplomatic means." "They've already left their system, Ambassador," Captain Haijin said from her position in the military section. "Our intelligence reports show human vessels operating in 6 different sectors. They're using our stolen technology and improving it. Ships that should have taken them decades to develop are already in production." "Impossible," someone said. "No species can advance that quickly." Haijin activated a holographic display showing various human vessels. Not only possible, but confirmed. These ships were photographed last week. Note the shield configurations. That's not our technology anymore. They've modified it, made it more efficient, in some cases better than our own designs. The council chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Taejong watched, his earlier confidence slowly draining away. This wasn't making sense. No species could advance this fast. It violated everything he'd learned about technological development. "How?" he whispered to the screen, as if answering. The recording shifted to show a human research facility that Velrosian forces had raided. The lead scientist, a Velrosian named Wanshik, provided commentary over footage of the facility's interior. "What we found here disturbs me greatly," Wanshik said. "The humans don't just copy our technology. They take it apart, understand the fundamental principles, then rebuild it from scratch. Look at this." The view focused on a workstation covered in Velrosian equipment, all disassembled. "They're not interested in replicating what we gave them. They want to know why it works, so they can make their own versions. Better versions." "But the speed," Dalsu's voice said from off-camera. "It should take years to understand technology this advanced." Yes, but humans have something we didn't account for. They share information at incredible speed across their entire species. When one human team makes a breakthrough, every human researcher knows about it within hours. They have a global computer network that connects their entire planet. They work together with an efficiency we've never seen. An ambassador, there's something else." The view changed to show a human prisoner being interviewed. The man was young, probably injured during the facility raid, but his eyes were sharp and calculating. "Why did you attack Colony Praxis?" the interviewer asked. The human smiled. "'Cause you showed us we were weak. You came to our world with ships that crossed the stars and ours. You have weapons that could destroy our cities from orbit. You have technology that seems like magic to us. And you offered to share it slowly, carefully, like parents giving a child small pieces of candy. We were trying to help you. You were trying to control our development. Keep us dependent. Keep us weak." The human leaned forward. "I grew up poor. My family struggled for food every day. Then one day a rich man offered to help us. He gave us just enough to survive, but not enough to escape poverty. He kept us grateful. Kept us obedient. I learned something important from that experience."
"What?" "That help with strings attached is just a prettier kind of prison. You want to guide humanity into your galactic community? You want us to be your pets? Your junior
"Partners who always need your approval?" The human's smile vanished. "We don't take handouts. We take what we need to survive. That's what we've always done." The recording showed Wanshik's analysis continuing. The humans view the galaxy through a lens of survival. Everything is potential threat or potential resource. They don't think in terms of honor or proper conduct. They think in terms of advantage, and that makes them incredibly dangerous. The view shifted again, now showing the first major battle between human forces and the Galactic Fleet. It was meant to be a quick police action. 50 warships against a dozen human vessels that had been raiding supply convoys. The Galactic Fleet had superior numbers, better weapons, stronger shields. They should have won in minutes. They did win, technically. But the cost was horrifying. The human ships fought with a ferocity that shocked the galactic commanders. When their shields failed, they rammed galactic vessels. When their weapons were destroyed, they used their ships as missiles. They transmitted false surrender signals, then detonated their own reactors when rescue ships approached. By the time the battle ended, Galactic Fleet had lost 17 ships to destroy 12 human vessels. But it was the aftermath that truly frightened the Galactic forces. Every human ship had been recording the battle. Every tactic the Galactic Fleet used, every weapon, every maneuver was captured in detail. And within weeks, human forces across multiple sectors were already adapting to counter those tactics. The recording showed Hajin, now promoted to fleet commander, briefing the High Council. "They're not just fighting us, they're studying us. Every battle is a learning experience for them, and they learn fast. The tactics that worked last month are useless now. We've already adapted, and we need to strike harder," a council member said. "Overwhelming force. With respect, Counselor, that's what they want. Every ship we send against them is another opportunity for them to study our technology and tactics. We're teaching them how to defeat us. What do you suggest?" Hygiene was quiet for a long moment. "I suggest we consider that we may not be able to win this war." The council chamber exploded with outrage. The recording showed angry debates, accusations of cowardice, demands for Hajin's removal. But Dalsu, sitting in a corner of the chamber, looked like he agreed with her. The war continued for months, then years. The recording showed highlights, battle after battle, each more brutal than the last. Humans developed new weapons based on captured galactic technology. They used psychological warfare, attacking supply lines and terrorizing civilian populations. Not through violence, but through the constant threat of violence. They made galactic commanders afraid to make decisions, worried that any action would somehow play into human plans. And the most terrifying thing was that human losses seemed to mean nothing to them. For every battle they lost, for every ship destroyed, they learned something new. They were willing to sacrifice thousands of their own people just to gather intelligence on galactic weapons and tactics. The recording showed an intercepted human military communication. Human admiral named Kyung-Soo was speaking to his fleet commanders. "They think we're monsters," Kyung-Soo said calmly. "They think we fight without honor, without mercy. They're right. Honor is for species that can afford it. We can't. We're outgunned, outnumbered, and fighting against an enemy that could destroy our world if they decided we weren't worth the trouble. So we use every advantage we have. Fear, deception, sacrifice, whatever it takes." "Some of the crew are saying we're becoming the villains in this war," another human voice said. "Let them say it," Kyung-Soo replied. "History is written by survivors, and we're going to survive." The view changed to show Dol-Soo, now visibly aged, meeting with Hai-Jin in a secure room. "I did this," he said quietly. "I brought them into the galaxy. I gave them the tools they needed to become this. But you couldn't have known," Hai-Jin said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Couldn't I? The signs were all there. A species that survived on a death world. A species with a history of constant warfare. A species that fought each other for millions of years before we arrived. They didn't become dangerous because of us. They were already dangerous. We just gave them a bigger battlefield. So what do? Dol-Soo looked at her with tired eyes. "We end this war not through victory, through separation. Complete separation." In the vault, Tae-young felt cold despite the warm air. The recording was only halfway done, but already his worldview had been shattered. These weren't monsters attacking the galaxy. They were survivors doing whatever it took to protect themselves. And somehow, that was more frightening than any monster could be. "They're just scared," Jiwoo whispered. "The humans, I mean. They're terrified of us." "So they hurt us first," Tae-young said. "Before we could hurt them." On screen, the war continued. And with each battle, the humans grew stronger, smarter, and more dangerous. They were learning. There was no sign they would ever stop. The recording showed the war entering its 5th year. The galactic fleet had stopped trying to win and started trying just to contain human expansion. But even that was failing. Human ships appeared in sectors they shouldn't have been able to reach. They established hidden bases on remote asteroids and moons. They were everywhere and nowhere, striking without warning and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. Fleet Commander Hai-Jin looked exhausted in every appearance. Her scales had lost their vibrant color and she moved like someone carrying an impossible weight. The recording showed her in what appeared to be her private quarters, speaking into a personal log. "Day 1842 of the conflict," she said quietly. "We lost another science vessel today. The humans didn't destroy it. They captured it intact, along with all the researchers aboard. That's their pattern now. They don't want to kill us. They want to learn from us. Every prisoner they take is interviewed extensively. Every ship they capture is studied in detail. They're building a complete understanding of our civilization, our technology, our weaknesses." She paused, staring at something off camera. "Received a message today from Admiral Kyung-Soo. A personal message directly to me. It wasn't encrypted. He wanted us to intercept it." "Would you like to know what it said?" The recording shifted to show text on a screen. The message was written in perfect Velrosian script. "Commander Hai-Jin, I respect you. You're the only one of your leaders who seems to understand what this war really is. It's not a battle between good and evil. It's just a conflict between a predator and prey who refuses to be eaten. I'm sending you the coordinates of 3 of our bases. Yes, really. Attack them if you want, you'll win. Ask yourself what you'll learn in the process. And ask yourself what we'll learn by watching how you win. Every battle teaches us something. Even the ones we lose. Especially the ones we lose. Respectfully, Kyung-Soo." Hai-Jin's recorded voice continued. "I didn't attack those bases, not because I'm a coward. Because he's right. They're learning faster than we can adapt. And I don't know how to fight an enemy that treats every defeat as an education. The recording jumped forward to show a major Galactic Council meeting. This time, all 40-member species were present, along with their military commanders. The chamber was tense with fear and frustration. "We must end this war," Dalsu said. He stood at the center of the chamber, and everyone could see how the conflict had aged him. "We're fighting a battle we cannot win, not because humans are stronger than us, because they're willing to pay prices we're not." "You're suggesting we surrender?" the council member demanded. "I'm suggesting we survive. There's a difference." Dalsu activated a holographic display. "Our intelligence shows that human population centers are preparing for a long war. They've converted 20% of their economy to military production. 20%. Do you understand what that means? They're willing to starve themselves to build more ships. They're willing to sacrifice their own comfort, their own lives to keep fighting. Can any of our species say the same?" The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the answer. The galactic species were civilized, comfortable, unused to real hardship. They went to war with surplus resources, with volunteer militaries, with the expectation that conflicts would be short and casualties minimal. The humans fought like their species' survival depended on every battle, because to them, it did. "We have a proposal," Hyjin said, stepping forward. "Complete separation. We establish a border that humans cannot cross. In return, we never enter human space again. No contact, no trade, no communication. Both sides exist as if the other doesn't." "That's a retreat," someone objected. "That's survival," Hyjin corrected. "The alternative is we continue this war for another decade, lose another 100,000 soldiers, and eventually reach the same conclusion. Or worse, we escalate until someone decides to use planet-killer weapons. Do we really want to find out if humans will retaliate in kind?" The vote took 3 days of debate. In the end, it passed. Barely. The Galactic Council agreed to propose a complete separation. Treaty to the humans. The recording showed the negotiation. It took place on a neutral station, far from either human or galactic space. Hyjin and Dalsu represented the Galactic Council. Across the table sat Admiral Kyung-Soo and 2 human diplomats. Kyung-Soo was younger than Taeyong expected, perhaps 40 in human years, with gray starting to show in his dark hair. He looked tired but alert, and his eyes missed nothing. When he spoke, his voice was calm and reasonable, which somehow made everything he said more frightening. "We accept your proposal for separation," Kyung-Soo said simply. "We'll withdraw from all disputed territories. We'll establish a border and respect it." "Just like that?" Dalsu asked suspiciously. "No demands? No conditions?" "We have one condition: honesty." Kyung-Soo leaned forward. "We want you to establish this separation as an official prohibition. Not a treaty, law. We want you to make it illegal for any galactic species to contact humanity. Permanent. Absolute. With severe penalties for violation." Hyjin frowned. "Why would you want that?" "Because treaties can be renegotiated. Laws are harder to change. We want your children and grandchildren to be afraid of us. We want that fear passed down through generations. We want the memory of this war to last long after everyone in this room is dead." "You want us to fear you?" Dalsu asked, confused. "We want you to leave us alone," Kyung-Soo corrected. "Fear is just the most effective method to ensure that happens. You came to our world offering friendship and advancement. Look where that got us. We don't want your friendship anymore. We don't want your guidance. We want you to forget we exist." One of the human diplomats, a woman named Sujin, spoke up. "You need to understand something about humanity. We're not a naturally aggressive species, but we're survivors. Earth tried to kill us for millions of years. Predators, diseases, weather, other humans. We survived everything. And we learned something important. The universe doesn't care about fairness. It doesn't reward good behavior or punish evil. It only respects strength. So, you chose to become strong through violence," Dalsu said bitterly. We chose to survive using the tools we had, Sujin replied. You gave us advanced technology before we were ready. You showed us how weak we were compared to the rest of the galaxy. What did you think would happen? Did you expect us to smile and accept a permanent position as your inferiors? Kung-Su held up a hand, stopping Sujin from continuing. We're getting off topic. Here are our terms. You establish the prohibition. You make it absolute. You make sure every species in your council knows that humans are forbidden. In return, we stay in our space. We don't expand into your territory. We don't raid your ships. We end the war. For how long? Kunju smiled, but there was no warmth in it. That's the interesting question, isn't it? How long can humans be contained? I'll be honest with you, Commander. This separation serves us as much as it serves you. Right now, we're not ready for real conflict with the Galactic Council. You outnumber us dramatically. Your technology is still ahead of ours in many areas. But give us time. Give us a few centuries to develop on our own, without interference. And then ... Then what? Dalsu demanded. Then we'll see. Maybe we'll stay in our space forever. Maybe we'll become peaceful explorers who want nothing but knowledge. Maybe we'll develop into something worthy of joining your galactic community. Kunsu paused. Or maybe we'll become something you can't stop. Either way, this separation gives both our species time to prepare for whatever comes next. The recording showed hours of negotiation. Details about the border. Enforcement mechanisms. What would happen if either side violated the agreement? Through it all, Kong-Su remained calm, reasonable, absolutely terrifying in his honesty. Finally, Dalsu asked the question everyone was thinking. What if we decide the threat is too great? What if we decide to end this war by ending humanity? The room went silent. Kung-Su studied Dalsu for a long moment before answering. You could try. You probably have the weapons to destroy Earth. You might even succeed. But ask yourself this. Are you certain you'll get all of us? Every ship. Every base. Every hidden colony. He leaned back in his chair. Because if even a few thousand humans survive, they'll remember what you did. And they'll spend the rest of their existence making sure you regret it. Humans are very good at holding grudges, Ambassador. Very good. The treaty was signed that day. The prohibition on human contact became galactic law. Both sides withdrew to their respective territories. The war that had lasted 5 years ended not with victory, but with mutual fear. In the vault, Tae Yang watched the screen with growing horror. There was still more recording left. And somehow, he knew the worst was yet to come. The recording jumped forward several decades. Ambassador Dalsu appeared on screen again, but he was barely recognizable. His scales had faded to almost white, and he moved with the careful slowness of someone in great pain. He sat in a small room, alone, speaking directly into the camera. My name is Dalsu. I was the ambassador who made first contact with humanity 800 cycles ago. If you're watching this, then you've seen everything that happened. The war, the deaths, the treaty, all of it, he coughed. A wet, rattling sound. I'm dying. The doctors say I have perhaps a month left. So I wanted to record this final testimony while I still could. Because I need you to understand something that the official reports don't explain. Dalsu leaned forward, and his eyes, though dimmed by age, still held terrible intensity. The humans won that war. Not militarily. But in every way that matters, they won. They wanted us to fear them. We do? They wanted to be left alone? We gave them exactly what they wanted. They turned our own mercy into a weapon against us. He paused. But here's what keeps me awake at night. What if that was their plan all along? He activated a display showing various data. Look at this. Human expansion over the decades since the treaty. They've colonized 47 systems in their space. 47. They've built an industrial base that rivals the entire Galactic Council. They've developed technologies we still don't understand. And they've done it all while we sat behind our border, too afraid to even look. We gave them time. We gave them space. We gave them everything they needed to become stronger than us. And we did it because we were afraid. Because they made us afraid. Dalsu's voice cracked. I brought them into the galaxy. I gave them their first taste of what was possible out here. And now, 8 decades later, I can see exactly what I've created, a species that will one day be unstoppable. He looked directly into the camera. To whoever watches this recording, you'll be tempted to dismiss everything you've seen. You'll think that we were primitive, that we overreacted, that surely the humans have changed in the centuries since then. You'll believe you're smarter than we were. Dalsu's expression hardened. You're not. The Prohibition isn't about hatred. It's not about fear of the unknown. It's about accepting a terrible truth. Some species are too dangerous to coexist with, not because they're evil, because they're too good at survival. Humans aren't monsters. They're just better at this than we are. Better at adapting. Better at learning. Better at doing whatever it takes to win. And that makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. He was quiet for a long moment. If you encounter them again, if the Prohibition fails, you'll have 3 choices. Submit to them, fight them, and lose. Or become like them. And if you choose that third option, you'll lose everything that makes your civilization worth preserving. So please, whoever you are, whenever you are, keep the Prohibition. Don't make contact. Don't try to reason with them. Don't believe you can change them or guide them. Just ... Stay away. Let them have their space. Let them explore the galaxy if they must. But never give them a reason to see you as a threat. Because if you do, they'll treat you the way evolution taught them to treat threats. They'll eliminate you. Dalsu reached forward, and the recording ended. For a moment, the screen showed only static. Then new text appeared. Supplementary files attached. Viewer discretion advised. Taeyong almost didn't want to see more, but his hand moved automatically to access the files. The screen filled with document after document. Intelligence reports from the centuries following the treaty. Long-range observation data. Intercepted human communications. The reports painted a picture that made his blood run cold. The humans had kept the treaty. Technically, they hadn't entered galactic space. They hadn't attacked galactic vessels. But they'd expanded in every other direction, claiming system after system, building colony after colony. Their population had grown from 8 billion to over 200 billion across. Dozens of worlds, and their technology had advanced at an impossible rate. Faster than light drives that were twice as efficient as galactic models, weapons that could crack planets, shields that could withstand direct hits from stars. All of it developed independently, without any galactic assistance. One report showed an intercepted human communication from just 20 cycles ago. A human scientist named Biora was giving a presentation to what appeared to be a military academy. Our ancestors made a treaty with the Galactic Council, Biora said to an auditorium full of young humans. They promised we would stay in our space, that we wouldn't expand into galactic territory, that we would leave them alone. And for 800 years, we've kept that promise. But promises have time limits, she continued. Our ancestors bought us time. Time to grow. Time to develop. Time to become strong enough that when we finally do meet the Galactic Council again, we meet them as equals. Not as children begging for scraps of knowledge. Not as servants grateful for their guidance. As equals, the recording showed the young humans listening with intense focus. Biora smiled. Some of you will live to see the day when humanity expands past our current borders. When we explore the galaxy without asking anyone's permission. When we take our place among the stars not because someone gave it to us, but because we earned it. And on that day, the Galactic Council will have a choice. Accept us as we are, or learn why our ancestors scared them so badly. The vault was silent as the final files finished playing. Taeyong and Jiwoo sat in shock, trying to process everything they'd seen. Hours had passed. The weight of knowledge pressed down on them like a physical force. Then Jiwoo gasped. Look at the date on that last file, Taeyong checked. The intercepted human communication was from 20 cycles ago, which meant it was current. Recent. The humans were still out there, still expanding, still growing stronger. The Prohibition hadn't eliminated the threat. It had only delayed it. We need to tell someone, Jiwoo whispered. Tell them what? Tai Yang asked bitterly. That the prohibition our ancestors established is going to fail? That humanity is coming whether we want them to or not? That we've spent 800 cycles hiding from a problem instead of solving it? Before Jiwoo could answer, lights flooded the vault. Professor Krelm stood in the doorway, his expression sad but unsurprised. You watched it all? He said quietly. It wasn't a question. Taeyang stood, expecting punishment. Instead, Krelm simply walked to the terminal and removed the data crystal. How many students do you think I've caught in this vault over the decades? How many curious young minds who didn't believe the warnings? You wanted us to see it, Jiwoo realized. I wanted you to understand, Krelm corrected. The prohibition isn't about keeping you ignorant. It's about keeping you safe. But you're right about one thing. You deserve to know why. He carefully placed the crystal back on its pedestal. Now you do. The question is, what will you do with that knowledge? Taeyang thought about the recording. About Dalsu's warning. About the humans expanding through the galaxy, getting closer to galactic space with every passing cycle. What can we do? They're coming. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not in our lifetimes. But eventually, perhaps Krelm said, or perhaps the separation will hold. Perhaps humanity will develop into something peaceful. Something we can coexist with. He paused. But I doubt it. Species don't change their fundamental nature. They just become better at expressing it. So we just wait? Jiwoo asked. Wait for them to arrive and hope they're friendly? We prepare, Krelm said firmly. Not for war. We can't win that. We prepare to meet them as equals. We advance our technology. We strengthen our civilization. We learn from our ancestors' mistakes. And when humanity finally does cross our borders, we greet them not as masters or servants, but as partners, if we're lucky. He moved toward the door, then stopped. One more thing. I have information I haven't shared with the Council yet. Long-range sensors detected something 3 cycles ago. Signals. Coming from beyond our border, from human space. The signals show a pattern. The humans have achieved faster-than-light communication. They're talking to each other across hundreds of light years instantaneously. Taeyang felt his heart sink, which means ... Which means they're coordinating their expansion on a galactic scale. Which means their colonies are no longer isolated outposts, but a unified network. Which means they're not just growing. They're organizing. Krelm looked at them both seriously. I estimate we have 100 cycles before human ships reach our borders. Maybe less. 100 cycles, Jiwoo repeated. That's nothing. That's our children's lifetime, which is why I let curious students break into sealed vaults, Krelm said softly. Because your generation will be the one that faces them, not mine. You need to understand what's coming. You need to be ready. He left, and the vault door sealed behind him. Taeyang and Jiwoo stood alone in the dim room, the weight of the future pressing down on them. What do we do? Jiwoo asked again. Taeyang looked at the data crystal, still sitting innocently on its pedestal. 800 cycles of fear and separation, all because one ambassador had made first contact with a species he didn't understand. And now that separation was ending, the humans were coming. Not with invasion fleets or declarations of war, just with the slow, inevitable expansion of a species that had learned to survive anything the universe threw at them. We remember, Taeyang said finally. We remember everything we saw here. We remember Dalsu's warning. We remember why the prohibition exists. And we make sure that when humans do arrive at our borders, we don't repeat our ancestors' mistakes. What mistakes? Treating them like children who needed guidance. Underestimating them because they were primitive. Believing we could control them? Taeyang turned to face Jiwoo. The humans aren't our enemies, but they're not our friends either. They're survivors. And when we meet them again, we need to be ready to survive them. They left the vault together, carrying knowledge that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Behind them, the data crystal remained on its pedestal, waiting for the next curious student who didn't believe the prohibition was real, above them, beyond the atmosphere, beyond the borders of galactic space. Human ships continued their slow, patient expansion across the stars, coming closer, always closer, and the galaxy waited, caught between fear and hope, knowing that one day soon, the Prohibition would end. And when it did, everything would change.